The tariffs are coming. The tariffs are coming. It's a big deal. A lot of countries are afraid of the Chinese invasion of automobiles from those factories that apparently can make them at very low cost in ways that are very compelling that customers might just want to buy. Rather than stepping up our own efforts, why don't we just impose a bunch of tariffs to try and protect our own situation? Let's have a conversation about that. I'm Brian. Welcome to Future Aza. I'm joined one more time by Jan from Tesla Fix, and I say one more time. This isn't the last time, certainly.
Hopeful.
Well, we'll see how it goes because this guy, who knows?
I don't know.
So there are.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, head over to Tesla Fix. He has great interviews, and what I loved about it, he contacted me early on, and he said, "Hey, I've got this tiny channel. Maybe you'd consider coming on." And I went and looked at who his guests had already been. Mm-hmm. Who is this guy?
And I asked, please, a little bit of followers here and there. So head over to my channel and subscribe because cool stuff is coming. It's almost like I'm the second channel of Brian.
I mean, that'd be weird, but...
Yeah, that'd be totally...
Biden hits Chinese electric cars and solar cells with higher tariffs. Now, we don't do politics because there are no winners in politics. There are... Everyone's a loser. Loser? No. But this is... I only cover politics as much as it intersects with the technology. Mm-hmm. Now, I understand the desire to protect domestic automakers, any domestic industry, really. But this doesn't just cover the cars. This also hits the solar panels. Mm-hmm. There are not a lot of solar panel manufacturers outside of China.
Yep.
Do you want a green revolution or not? What's your take on this?
So, first of all, on the politics.
Mm-hmm.
Like South Park said, it's always about electing a turd sandwich or a giant douche. So make your choice and that's it.
Which in German, a douche is a shower. So we should point that out too.
Yeah, but a special kind of shower. Yeah. So, okay. But what I can say about this in comparison, this trade war stuff is pretty interesting. And especially with imports of solar panels, like you said. I mean, is it a good idea to impose those kinds of laws? Because there are industries or stuff like, for example, solar panels that are also hit by this. And this doesn't really make sense because when you don't produce them locally, so it has a taste like it's good for the oil industry again.
It does.
Yeah, or for the natural gas station.
Same people. Yeah,
exactly.
For sure.
Yeah.
And 100% import tax. Now, I've seen a lot of people, especially in the comments, say, well, they'll impose those new taxes even if they're built in Mexico. Mm-hmm. And that's not how the trade agreement was written. It's a brand new agreement. It's, 4 or 5 years old. It's a very new trade deal. And businesses do not like, countries and businesses do not like renegotiating deals all the time unexpectedly. You need enduring
reliability.
Policies.
Yeah, and reliability. Because, of course, when you, for example, are an importer of Chinese goods, for example, then you have a problem now because then you have to switch it over. Or industries that are heavily, for example, solar panel installators or people who, like contractors who do that. What's happening to those?
Are you going to build a new showroom for your company if in 2 years or 3 years you're going to have to shut it down?
Yeah. No.
And we're already seeing that with uncertainty over the fate of the IRA, which has very large credits for manufacturing batteries. Mm-hmm. The IRA itself in its future is uncertain, and we're seeing a lot of the battery manufacturers pulling back on their ambitions to build factories in the U.S. Mm-hmm. It's a bit frustrating. Mm-hmm. So then we've got Chinese EV startup NIO is changing its global strategy with U.S. and EU tariffs on the horizon. You've heard something about these proposed tariffs in the EU. Tell me about them.
So that's an interesting situation because Europe is also heavily dependent on certain things coming from China. What we, for example, don't want is like the trade. For example, Temu is a big thing here that people order, like Amazon competitors, AliExpress, stuff like this. So flooding the market with, I don't know, electronics or cheaper stuff in that sense, but also our car industry is pretty heavily reliant on China, for example. So this is a double-edged sword because on one hand, they want to protect their market. On the other hand, they are reliant on China. But the problem is you cannot penalize China too much because then they will say, oh, how about we don't export anything to you anymore? And then the industry collapses here as well. So it's a very difficult thing. And they talked about imposing those tariffs. And that's also why I bought my Model 3 Highland last year, because I figured, okay, they're going to impose new laws about taxation for imports. That means the price will go up eventually. So that's why I pulled my investment earlier.
Sure. Yeah. And it's difficult. You've got companies like NIO and BYD who want to build their own factories all over the world.
Yeah.
And that's the point of some of these policies. But I feel like you might be able to accomplish it without hurting yourself at the same time. And some of these tariff policies look like they will hurt them. And what I'm seeing is if you want to bring the manufacturing back, look at their perspective. A lot of these companies in China are now partnering with the likes of Stellantis and others to build cars in cooperation. And where does that put these laws? You know, it ends up being pretty tricky, I think.
Yeah. And what also is the thing, why are those tariffs imposed like on China? Of course, it's because China is a big country and they will surpass the US in also the revenues and GDP at one point, and also the Europe at one point, because they are a bigger population. The same for India on the long run. If you look into the horizon, that I don't think that's something you cannot you can't suppress, kind of. But that's now it's almost like too late. But now they try to impose those laws. Like, oh my God, we've got to step on the brakes here because they will flood the market.
You're holding back the floodwaters, but you can only do it for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's tricky in that regard. 1 in 4 EVs sold in Europe this year will be made in China, according to this analysis. Last year it was 1 in 5. A lot of those EVs are surely Model 3s. Tesla makes Model 3s in Shanghai, which are sold throughout Europe. Model Ys made in Shanghai do not come to Europe. Those are, of course, from Berlin. You take all of Tesla's sales and then add on MG, Geely, Volvo, Polestar, Great Wall Motors.
Smart One.
Oh, it's Smart?
Yeah, Smart One's from Geely.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I meant in one episode before, that Geely actually is behind the Smart One in collaboration, and then Mercedes also with their EQS line, they did it or are doing a joint venture. That's what I've read. Fact check this, please, again, because I'm not 100% sure. Disclaimer here, but that's what I heard, that they are tying the knot kind of with Geely there. Yeah.
Now, if you like lazy and terrible analysis, look at this forward-looking projection, which assumes that Tesla will no longer be making cars for sale in Europe from China.
Of course, no, they won't.
Even without that bump in there, it's,
Yeah, and what also people don't forget is Tesla is already having a running factory in Europe.
Yes.
And if those tariffs are too steep, they're going to start to do the Model 3 production in Europe,
agree.
I would say. Also with the expansion now from the table, because they renegotiated, and this is something that's pretty interesting. They just, it went through, and now they can start building. When those pesky protesters, but first, they have to get out of the forest somehow. Maybe we need the police to step in finally.
And I would point out that this says the yellow is other Chinese brands, and this is forecast of all non-Chinese brands.
Yeah.
For all other brands, but it's very lazy because you can be off by huge margins.
course.
As long as you get close on the total.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
Fine. It's fine.
Yeah, and also the trends what we are seeing. I mean, BYD flooded the European market at one point, but did they sell any more? No, they didn't. Because people in Europe are actually pretty brand loyal, and I think something is, especially in Germany, something important here is to note, and that's in the 70s or 80s, the Japanese manufacturers flooded the US market with their cheap cars. And what happened? They were pretty successful. That's why Toyota also is a very famous and huge brand in the US. But why isn't that in Germany? Because our cars here were made with such an amount of detail that the perfectionist German buyer didn't want to buy a Toyota. And when you compared it with the US manufacturing, that was also, let's say, a little bit not too perfectionistic. Let's say it this way.
That's very kind.
Yeah. With, for example, the US with their big blocks, for example, that's what Germans hate. Oh, it's not efficient, this engine and stuff like this. But of course, we had some petrol heads here that like their Harley Davidsons and stuff like this. So there is a niche that likes this here. But Germans laugh about this. Like big blocks, inefficient cars, too big cars and stuff like this. It doesn't make sense to them. So they stopped that just by having a consistent and very precise quality in their cars. And I think that's also still the perception that a Chinese car is a little bit subpar. But the fun thing is many German cars are actually also produced partially in China, or some third-party suppliers are actually from China.
A lot of parts, sure.
Pulled them to China, actually, yeah.
And when you've got that, so in the 70s, the vehicles that the U.S. was making were lazy.
Yeah.
They were behind the times. Mm-hmm. They had just rested.
Yeah.
And they hadn't pushed forward with good engineering, with trying to stay cutting edge, because they had this ginormous moat that protected them from all these things. And when Toyota showed up in the U.S., when Honda showed up in the U.S., and Nissan and Suzuki and all of those, they were competing in a segment that didn't exist.
Yeah.
They were the first efficient cars. Mm-hmm. Ford had the Pinto, which was a joke. Chevy had the Vega, which was a joke. They were just scaled down big dumb cars. Mm-hmm. The build quality was atrocious. Mm-hmm. The quality and reliability was not good. And it took Toyota, Honda, and others very little time to catch up to that and then just blow past it. And they were using manufacturing methods that were new and novel compared to what the U.S. was doing. Mm-hmm. And we saw that with the NUMMI factory, the joint venture between Toyota and GM. Mm-hmm. They were able to make much better cars. A friend of mine's a retired engineer from Ford. They got a NUMMI car to tear down and benchmark. And they found, I want to say, 14 or 16 defects in it. You'll get to meet him soon. And I said, is that good or bad? He said it was unbelievably good. When we tore down our own cars, which we'd grab one off the end of the line, bring it in and tear it down, they would find 100, 150 defects. Bert, check me on those numbers, would you? So the question is, and I said, 150, what are the defects? He goes, it's anything. It's a rivet out of place. It's a borehole that's a millimeter too short or too deep. We're nitpicking. Mm-hmm. So 14 defects, it was 10 times tighter engineering. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, and one thing to note here, it's also because of gas prices in the US. Because you fill up your tank by gallon, which is 4 liters here in the US. That's unthinkable here in Europe, of course. And that's why oil was so cheap in the US for so long, because you were a huge, or are kind of still a huge oil producer, but nothing compared to the 60s and 70s where like the oil boom really catched on. That's also a huge factor, that you don't have to be efficient because you have cheap oil.
Right.
And that's a big one.
Yeah.
But now efficiency is more and more important because the oil runs out.
No one was looking at efficiency in the days of the hot rods.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Maybe a handful of commuters, but...
And don't get me wrong, I like muscle cars and stuff like this, and big blocks, they have their thing on their special category. I like those. Also trucks, it's an interesting category, but still,
for the masses,
yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah,
especially in Europe, doesn't make sense. Yeah,
China EV makers rush cars to Mexico and Brazil amid tariff concerns. So that's an interesting one. One way of looking at this is that they're stockpiling just in case, but the other aspect is that they are looking to create factories in those countries to bypass it. If Brazil puts up 100% import tariff, that would destroy the Chinese market. But if they've got a factory, and I know BYD was looking at an old Ford factory to hermit crab their way into, that they would be able to produce domestic vehicles. And I made a video with Randy Kirk a while back where we discussed Mexico, and we were saying how all the Chinese brands will likely set up shop in Mexico because those are still North American produced cars. We had a ton of comments complaining, they'll stop it. And again, the treaty's already signed, and it would be likely legally impossible to try to differentiate where the company is headquartered. And if they did, they would say, okay, great. Well, this is BYD North America. It's a North American company now. And it would just be the same thing again. It's not going to, this is, like you said, we're holding back the floodwaters. But if you put these huge taxes on, they will build somewhere in your trade alliance and still get out there.
I think what it does is kind of get a delay to get kind of a head start in the markets finally or something. But I think you cannot hold it off, especially like you said, you would have to change your trade laws with Brazil then, and then you start to shut down your country actually, because then, okay, Chinese goods cannot come imported from Brazil. Okay, batteries, or yeah, you can do stuff like, okay, batteries have to be produced from this continent at least to get an incentive on something, or
Sure.
so, something like this. You could also
They hire armies of lawyers to try and find ways to be as restrictive as possible within the law. And the other guys employ their army of lawyers to find ways to get in through those cracks as best they can. Brazil is going to have suspended import duties on EVs, but they're coming back. 10% from January, 18% in July, and 35% after 2026. A little bit of time. They can build factories between now and then. What this is doing is picking winners and losers, because BYD can build a factory there. And I don't know if Li Auto can afford to. It's not that Li Auto is doomed, but they're a small and struggling company. It'll make it difficult. And, you know, Brazil does have quite a bit of hydropower. They have I think they get most of it from Jeff Bezos. Oh, no, from the Amazon. Never mind. I kid. I think most of their hydro is not from the Amazon, but other rivers. But it's still a quality joke, Jan.
It is.
To understand.
I'm German. I don't understand jokes. Do I have to laugh now?
I just love that he puts on a slightly thicker German accent when he's making fun of.
It's not slightly. It's like an American version of a German dialect.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah, he's here.
This is so cool.
He's here to pump you up. Did you know? Boy, that is a quality ad.
Yeah,
My
that is.
goodness.
You have to exit over
That
here
is
and
breathtaking.
just scroll down.
No. Yeah, okay,
now
good.
it worked. Yeah.
So I don't know if you know, Vauxhall, how do you say that?
I don't know. That's not German.
Well,
Vauxhall. No, that's, I don't know.
is Stellantis is going to sell cheap Chinese EVs in the UK and mainland Europe with a little thing called rebranding. So, of course, Stellantis has spoken out against these trade wars because, wait a minute, they affect me?
You can't do this.
Yeah. So it's very difficult to, the more you work together, what's the old saying, when dollars cross borders, soldiers don't?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Something like that. Correct me in the comments, would you? Because I think you will. The global car maker Stellantis is set to sell cheap cars. Now, when we say cheap, we're talking Leap motor cars of 20 to 17,000 and 17 to 20,000, 20,000 euros, 17,000 pounds, which, by the way, still less than a Hummer weighs.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. I don't know if they're going to actually, the fact that I don't think 20,000 euros is actually going to happen, I think that's too low. I think once you get the cost of shipping it, the import taxes that do exist, the dealer markup, because the dealer's got to get paid too. You think he's going to take $1,000 to stay in business? I think that's too low. So, but let's say it is $20,000. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? There is a there's a market for this.
Yeah.
People want it. And there are, especially younger people early in their career, there are people who do not have the opportunity to use mass transit for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that there are places where your connections don't work.
Mm-hmm.
Nowhere is perfect. There will always be people who do require that, who may or may not have the financial ability to do it. So what about these companies doing that? What about these companies that are making deals to rebadge cars?
Yeah, they try to get through the cracks, kind of. They try to get into the U.S. market as well, because there is a huge demand, because also when all the big companies in your country don't want to do that or can't. For example, Ford is struggling. Yeah. The Ford F-150 Lightning is, let's say, difficult, and they also pull back. Then GM pulled back. I mean, they had the Chevy Bolt, for example, which was in the category. They could have kept that on and on. But if sales numbers don't correlate, if they're struggling with software, that's a problem. And the Chinese are better in software development, for example. Okay, now this is Stellantis, but they still rely on China as well.
Of course.
Yeah, and
everyone does. Tesla buys
plate batteries here for the Model 3 Highland.
Well, sure. But even for the Models S and X, there are Chinese parts on those cars. Okay. I have seen them in the factory. Mm-hmm. If you look at American companies, there was a car called the Chevy Sprint, which looked awfully similar to the Geo Metro, because both of them were the same car made by, I think, Suzuki or someone like that. Mm-hmm. The U.S. GM needed to sell a bunch of Econo boxes to offset the others, so they just rebadged. Yeah. And that's not uncommon. The Chevy Cavalier was also, I'm pretty sure, a rebadged import. Mm-hmm. But going back even longer in time, you've got the Ford Probe was a Mazda MX-6. Mm-hmm. What was the other one? Oh, the Dodge Stealth was a Mitsubishi 3000 GT. Mm-hmm. And they would put a different hood or different bumper on it. Not, of course, not always. Sometimes they don't. But in those cases they did. They would change it a little bit. This is not something new. Mm-hmm. It's something that's been done. In Mexico, there's a Toyota. I can't remember the name of it right now. It's a very small 7-seat station wagon, and they're like $12,000. I thought, God, that is a deal for a Toyota. So I looked it up. It's not really a Toyota. I don't remember who makes it, but it's maybe I don't remember who. But it is a rebadge, because then you get to access their dealer network. Do you want to build your own dealer network? No, it's too much work. Yeah. So the tariffs are coming. So first question, do you believe the tariffs are coming?
I would say they are in some sense, but just to a certain extent. It could be that it's going to be overthrown pretty fast again, because business is hurting and the economy is struggling. I mean, I think right now it's like they are not coming as we think. They are coming in a softer version, I think, because I think for me it's about a little bit about the election politics a little bit. Yeah. We also have that here, that people like, we're furious about the Chinese imports and stuff like this, because we have also like a more conservative leaning now and stuff like this. So people, especially in the car industry, want German cars now, and it's localized again, the focus. But I don't think they are coming in the way that they want to impose those. And if they impose that, then they have actually a backdoor where the Chinese cars come anyway. For example, through the other countries. Sure. Because you can really see it like, imports from China declined, but imports from Mexico started to go up. And you can really see that China just uses them as a surrogate to get into the market again.
And BYD was looking at Turkey?
Hungary. Hungary. Yeah. And they will build in Hungary. Because of that, localization will be a huge topic. What they won't do, I think, is with chips, because they have a special ban on chips. China is not allowed to produce their own kind of chips for exporting or something. So yeah.
Well, that brings us to the exciting part of the show
Oh,
because we're doing a
Presents?
cultural exchange. Yeah.
yeah. He's just giving me treats all the time that I do these interviews with him all the time here as a guest.
Well, I had said hungry for chips, but I can't find them. So what I've got instead, yesterday, his daughter found this and thought, "Ooh, this is a cool box. Can I open it?" I said, "No, I've got something very special in there. Imported directly from America,
Oh,
a Twinkie
wow.
and a Ding Dong. Have you tried these before?"
Are you showing me your ding dong right now?
On camera.
Okay.
That's how we make money. Follow me on Patreon, X, or OnlyFans.
Yeah, please. If you want to see... okay, no, I'm not going there. Because I have a Twinkie in my hand, so yeah. Yeah,
So give that a shot.
Okay.
While he's opening that, I will say, please check out Tesla Fix. Please leave comments. Please like and subscribe. Please do all that. And if you want to see, they've got great bakeries, great pastries in Germany. They've got great food purity laws. But what they don't have is this trash. This is so dangerous that I worried they'd confiscate it at the border if they found it.
yeah. Yeah, so I know Twinkies, of course, by, famous media.
Have you ever had one?
I had one in the US one time, I think, or 2 times. But I'm not sure how it tastes like. I forgot how it tastes like. So this is a good go again. From Zombieland, that was the big commercial, that product placement that I was, that was pretty important. So let's try this Twinkie. Okay.
If you like palm oil.
No, so I like the taste because it's from Hostess, and I like the donuts, and they have not the same dough, but a similar one. So there's a distinct chemical taste to it that I also
That's familiar.
know from the other donuts.
How would you describe the flavor? What is the main flavor?
I would say high fructose corn syrup and sugar and small sprinkle of diabetes.
I think the flavor that they're going for is banana.
Banana? No.
I think so. In the comments, is it banana flavored?
Yeah, but what I realized, it's very spongy. Yeah. So it tastes good. I know them, and it's probably highly addictive as well when I eat more of them. So I kind of like them. I would rate it like a 6 or something like that.
That's really good. All right, now we've got the Hostess Ding Dong.
So to everyone who's enjoying me putting this ding dong into my mouth,
Well, on his channel, there might be a cultural exchange where he puts a big German sausage in my mouth. Again, head over to my OnlyFans.
Oh, God. You will taste German sausage soon. Yeah. No pun intended.
It's a threat.
It's a threat.
This is a little more straightforward. This is not so different from...
Yeah, we also have them here. It's similar. They are a little bit different looking. They are flatter and a little bit wider. So
more like a moon pie, it sounds like. But again, what I taste overwhelmingly is the palm oil because they put it in just everything.
So yeah, it's good, but not my favorite. I would say the Hostess donuts, for example, the powdered sugar donuts, they are nice. I think with milk together, they combine.
And the chocolate covered ones, the donut gems. Those are
what I like from those actually are the the donut holes that you could buy.
Oh,
they're just like the donut balls.
Well, we're all about recycling, you see. So
if donuts are made stamped out with donut holes, like
I mean, aren't they?
No,
I'm pretty sure they are. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Just saves a step.
This one is better. better, I would say, than the other one, depending on if you like chocolate or not.
Yeah, so you can
If
see
that's even chocolate.
why
Or just paint thinner, like the last time.
it's
Always paint thinner.
yeah. Don't worry, I've got a few more treats for you, but these are the ones I had today.
Got to consult with my doctor after these episodes, I think.
In between each one, so that would be good. If anyone knows the number for Dr. Arroyo, that's Conan's private doctor. He's very affordable. All right. So what did we miss? What do we misunderstand? Leave it into the comments below. And of course, stay tuned, stay juicy, and I cannot wait to hear from you, clever robots, in the comments section on Jan's videos over on Tesla Fix. Link into that description. Thank you again.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.